we've already seen this next formula. In fact, there are three formulas here. Distance equals rate times time, or rate equals distance divided by time, or time equals distance divided by rate. These are all related to each other, but they're slightly different formulas. And still, they're all related to each other. So whatever two we're given, that third one is what we use to start the problem with. So I notice in example 6a, this is on page 8, part A, we're given a rate, I'll just call it R for now to abbreviate things, is 15 miles per hour, and we're given a time, T is what I'll say, is 3 hours, and we're asked to find the other part of this. Well, we're given rate and time. What we don't have is distance, so we use this formula, distance equals. So we'll do this formula here for A. Oh, and B. In example 7 has them mixed up, so I wasn't paying enough attention. Look what happens when you don't pay attention. Anyway, here's our formula. Distance equals rate times time. D equals rate 15 miles per hour times time 3 hours, and this equals 45. Now 45 is a distance, so it's going to be in miles. And there is some explanation in the book as to why we get just miles out of that. So read the book to know for sure. Okay? Here's B. Rate equals 50 miles per hour. 50 this time. And the time is 1/2 hour. So we can have fractional time units. We also have fractional mile units if we needed to. And the distance is rate times time. So distance is 50 miles per hour times 1/2 hours. 1/2 times 50. Multiply the numbers together. 50 times 1/2 is 25. And again, that's a distance. That's miles. For example 7 on the very next page, I will do letter A. No, I'm sorry. I won't do letter A, rate and time. We've already been given rate and time. I'll do letter B and letter C only. And the others will be similar. In B, we're given the distance, which is 12 centimeters. And we're also given the time, which is 3 seconds. Now in this case, given distance and time, we're missing rate. So we go up and find the rate formula. Rate equals, what does it say? Distance over time. So that becomes rate equals a distance of 12 centimeters over 3 seconds. And this time, when we simplify, it becomes just 4, but 4 what? Centimeters over seconds means centimeters per second. Centimeters per second. So that's how we'll write that in. Centimeters per second, or how did I write it? Yeah, more typically, 4 centimeters per second. Notice how we use that slanted divided by sign. We don't normally use that. Actually, notice how all my division signs are my fraction bars straight across. But when we use per, centimeters per second, we write it that way. Okay, and I said I'd do letter C also. C, we're given a distance of 80 feet and a rate of 5 feet per minute. Feet, FT, per minute. Notice how I wrote that. And the only thing that's missing is the time. So we want to find time. T equals, and the formula for that is distance over rate. So time equals distance, 80 feet, over rate, 5 feet per minute. Now, time is in terms of minutes in this case. So the feet is all going to work itself out. 80 divided by 5, it turns out, is 16, and it will be minutes. Time equals 16 minutes. Okay? Let's go on to the next example. And the last example, too. The last example. Example 8 uses the brand new formula for interest that you earn at a bank, usually, or maybe some other kinds of savings through stocks or whatever. Example 8. The thing about this, I want to point out, principal, that means whatever amount you start with, whatever amount you invest, that's called the principal. And then there's an interest rate, usually in the neighborhood of 4% up to 6%. As the economy changes, it might grow to like 7 or 8%. If there's high inflation, it could grow to 10 or 11%. If the economy is really good and there's slow rate of growth, it might even shrink down to 2 or 3%. I even saw 1% recently, which is awful as far as gaining interest on an account. Anyway, T stands for time, and time is a fraction of a single year, of 1 year. And it might be a full year, or it might be a fraction based on the number of months. So, and that's explained there. But let me get example 8a. We're told that the principal is $1,000. Simple. The rate is 8%, which we need to interpret it as 0.08, or as 8 over 100. T is 1 year. So when we go to calculate the interest, I equals P times R times T. That's 1,000 times the rate, which is 0.08, times the time, which is 1. And when we multiply a number like 1,000, like powers of 10 were called 100, 10, 100,000, 10,000, they have all these zeros. It's just a matter of moving the decimal place. In this case, we need to move it 2 zeros, so two places, excuse me. So we'll eliminate 2 of those zeros, and then it'll be 10 times 8, which is 80. Let me be more explicit what I mean. It'll be 10 times 100 times 0.08. And the reason I chose 100 again is because there are 2 decimal places here, so I made sure there's 2 zeros here. 100. And then 10 times 100, that's where the 1,000 is. 10 times 100. And times 1. Now, times 1 is going to make it no difference whatsoever. Well, again, as I was suggesting, 10 times. This is just 8. 100 times 0.08 times 1, and that becomes 80. And it's in dollars. Interest is always $80. Or in dollars, I mean. So we can write dollars. Okay. I made that probably more difficult than it needed to be. Let's do part B. Oh, this time it's not the same. P, we're told, is 3,500 or 3,500. R is 10%, which is like 0.10. And the time, this time, is a half a year. Half a year. So when we do the formula, P times R times T, the P is 3,500 times 0.10 times 1/2. Now, like I did over here, is I took 100 off of it to kind of use that to multiply times the decimal, and then whatever number, however many hundreds. Well, here we have 3,500. So I'm going to say it's 35 times 10, or I'm sorry, 100, 3,500 times the 0.10. And it's still times the 1/2. And that's 35 times, when we multiply 100 times 0.10, that gives us just 10. We move the decimal 2 places, 1, 2, and we get the whole number 10. I'll make it red. Why not? Times 1/2. Let's see. One thing I could do here is 35 times and multiply 10 times 1/2, which is times 5. And then multiplying 5 times 5 off to the side or whatever, that's going to be 175. And so that's how many dollars we would get for gaining interest on that account. Now I want to complete this and do the last one. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to have to erase part A, so please excuse me. Erase, erase, erase. Sorry about that. And the reason it's different, you can look ahead right now in the book, the reason it's different than the others is because it has months. We're told how many months we have instead. P is 4,000. R is 6%. Again, treat that as 0.06. T this time, wow, that was pretty bad, is 8 months. And what we need to do is think of that in terms of years. Well, there's 12 months in a year, so that becomes 8/12 of a year. Here we had 1/2 year. I never wrote that down, did I? 1/2 year. Well, let's see what we have here. 4,000 times 6%, 0.06, times the 8/12. Now I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to multiply these together, and the 8/12 I'm going to reduce as a fraction. Simplify it. So let's see, that's going to be 40 hundredths times 100 times 0.06. And then this fraction reduces by a factor of 4 to 2/3. And so what we're looking at is 40 times, and the 100 times 0.06 is just 6. Moving the decimal place 2 spaces. Just 6. 6 times the 2/3. Now, what I'm going to do is think ahead and recognize the 3 and the 6 can divide out. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to divide out 3 and get 1 there, and divide 3 into 6 and get 2. And that'll help me simplify it. And now I got 40 times 2 times 2. And that's $160. And that's the interest. Okay? That's a harder formula, especially because of the decimals. And I hope that my multiplication technique of peeling off 100 from the principal, so you can multiply 100 times that decimal to move the decimal 2 places. I hope that wasn't too confusing. If it doesn't make sense, please send an email to your teacher, or to put a question on the discussion board, and ask others, did that make any sense, or how do I understand that? And I or someone else will hopefully respond to you in good time. All right? Well, that's section 1.7. I'll see you next time.